Welcome everyone to Building Materials Marketing Unboxed. And a special shout out to those of you that are joining us from LinkedIn. That's right, we were recently approved to be on LinkedIn Live. So to my special friends that are out there today watching us live on LinkedIn, thank you for joining us. And it doesn't matter if you're on Facebook, on Twitter, checking us out on YouTube, we thank you for joining us today. We got a great show for you. My name is Will Smith. I am your host of Building Materials Marketing Unboxed, and let's get right down to it. Let's meet our guest for today. So here's a little bit of information about Taylor Rennick. She is, in 2019, she was of the top 1% of global HubSpot users, a great honor to be had. She obviously knows her stuff when it comes to HubSpot. She's a big NBA fan, but also she's a big fan of Major League Baseball. I actually have a question for her for that, so stay tuned as we get to know Taylor a little bit more. She plays tennis and golf, so obviously an athlete here. She's a military spouse, and right now she's based in Baltimore, and from what I understand, her husband is very intelligent and teaches military history, so great stuff. Now when she's not doing fun stuff like playing tennis and golf or checking out NBA or MLB, she is an account manager and a marketing strategist for Precision Marketing Group. Please welcome to Building Materials Marketing Unboxed, our good friend and guest for today, Taylor Rennick. Welcome, Taylor. How are you today?
Thank you. That was such a great intro. I feel like I'm on a game show.
Well, I do my best. I try. Okay, let's get right to it. Major League Baseball. You told me you have a goal to try to get to all of the stadiums out there. How many have you been to?
I have been to 11 and counting.
Nice. What's the total again? Just inform our audience.
30.
30. Okay. All right. You're getting there. Not quite halfway, but you're getting there. So of the 11 that you've seen, what's your favorite?
So I grew up in Seattle. So Safeco Field is near and dear to my heart because that's the first place I ever saw a baseball game. Got to see the 116th win that the Mariners had in 2001.
Nice.
They haven't really been good since, but we won't hold that against them.
Work in progress.
Otherwise, the old Candlestick Park in San Francisco was one of my favorites, and Coors Field in Denver is so pretty. And I'm really looking forward to going to Camden Yards for the first time since we moved to Baltimore post-pandemic. So
very good. Yeah, as we emerge from the pandemic and things start to open back up and everything, that's going to be your first stop. That's your local stadium, right?
Oh yeah, we can walk, kind of. I'm not going to do it. I'm definitely going to Uber, but you can walk if you want, if you're in business enough.
Okay, I gotcha. All right, very good. Excellent. So, so you love MLB. Did you play sports in college? Were you on the tennis team, golf team? What was kind of the, tell me a little bit about that.
No, I wish. I played tennis in high school. I loved it. I was on the tennis team in high school, and that's pretty much the extent of my tennis career.
Okay. Do you still golf and tennis for fun, though?
Yep, strictly for fun.
Okay, very good. All right.
Yeah.
So sounds good. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show on Building Materials Marketing Unboxed. So let's get right to it. I want to ask you first about you host the show that you hosted. So one host asking another host here. You hosted the Construction Cut on Builder Funnel Radio. So give us give our audience kind of a 60-second overview of why you wanted to get that started and what it was about. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I worked for an agency that works with remodelers, design builder modelers, and custom home builders. And as a marketer, I knew it was important to understand the issues that were affecting the construction industry. And, obviously that industry is seasonal, but there were a lot of other factors that my clients were bringing up that I wouldn't necessarily be privy to as a marketing partner. And one of those issues was the tariffs on Canadian lumber back in 2016. And I was like, well, first off, Canadian, you start to think about that. And I was like, after I got off the call with them, I was like, how do tariffs and how does Canada impact the cost for my client in Michigan or Minnesota? So I started looking into some industry trends and sort of stumbled into these economic policies that I realized were greatly affecting the industry. So that turned into me writing a few blogs and getting really interested in the machinations of economic policy that shaped the industry I was working with. And so those blogs turned into a podcast, and there you have it. I started covering construction news each week. So
Very good. When did this podcast come out?
it was January of 2020, which seems like about a decade ago. But so the construction cut ran for most of 2020. It was live each week. So if you're interested in it's really sort of interesting to see how the construction news with COVID started in January and sort of progressed throughout the year as the pandemic hit the US.
Very interesting. Great. That's great information, especially about why it came about. And I love that you started with some blog posts and that it just developed into a podcast, because so many people learn in different ways. I'm not much of a reader myself, but I'll listen to a podcast for sure. So I love how you're able to kind of repurpose that content and also really build upon that content. So nice. Very good. So tell me, this is kind of the theme for today. Tell me some potential disruptors to the building materials manufacturing space that you see that are going to, that are probably on the horizon over the next 5 years.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think you have to start with IoT. And of course, IoT, Internet of Things, that's a buzzword for sure, especially for the manufacturing space. But I think you have to start there. I think you're going to see a lot of construction require IoT capabilities. I think you're especially going to see that in urban areas or building construction in high density areas. I think you're also going to see the impacts of COVID-19 on some of these potential disruptors. I think you're going to see COVID permanently change the price of materials. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that the price doesn't stay inflated for long, but I have a feeling that's where we're going. I also think you're going to see HVAC companies start to make significant advances in some of their offerings in terms of air circulation and filtering and things like that. And then in the next 5 years, I think you're going to see a lot of eco-friendly and green materials. I think that's going to come to the forefront of a lot of people's minds and make a big splash.
Interesting. Okay, so just to kind of recap what you said, urban high intensity or high density building construction with IoT, Internet of Things capabilities. COVID obviously making a big change in the price of materials. Significant advances in HVAC and air handling, and then finally the rise of kind of green and eco-friendly materials. So very interesting that you're seeing these things on the horizon. Can I want to jump into with a little bit more detail into the Internet of Things, because that's very interesting. Obviously, having everything so connected in a very connected world. Do you think building material manufacturers should start kind of pushing these these IoT products?
Yeah, I do. I think the whole point of the Internet of Things, IoT, right, is to maximize human hours. So essentially automating tasks that waste precious human hours during the week. The things that humans do and, the very monotonous routine tasks can be taken care of by advances in digital technology. So when it comes to construction and specifically for building material manufacturers, I think it makes sense that those materials are built in such a way that allow you to monitor their activity or their performance in real time and increase profit and increase profitability. Things like site monitoring are going to be, this is conjecture, but I have a feeling like site monitoring is going to be really big, like manufacturers adding sensors into things that can measure inputs from off-site locations, like things like temperature and humidity and vibrations, like how sensors people could put sensors into the materials and then track how that material holds up in like various climates. Like if you're in Arizona in the summer, you can see how does my product hold up in 103-degree heat in the summer? Or, if I'm up in Minnesota, how does my product handle -10 degrees in the dead of winter? Things like that. So yeah, a lot of things going on there with the IoT.
I love those examples that you just gave. To me, it seems like IoT would give an opportunity for building material manufacturers to really test and see, or at least, we would hope that they would do the testing in the forefront, but in real world situations that they could possibly iterate on. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to being able to test how well your product holds up just in the various climates in the US, but more sort of ominous things, right? Like earthquakes or tornadoes or other natural disasters. There's a lot that can be done even from just a safety perspective that doesn't put humans in harm's way to be able to test these things. So
yeah, I definitely agree with you there. One other thing that you had mentioned, so optimizing human hours. That's a great phrase. First of all, I may be using that, so I'm taking it from you. I'm telling you now. So optimizing human hours. So is that to kind of take the mundane, the repetitive tasks? Is that kind of what you're talking to with IoT capabilities? Can you give us an example?
Yeah. Something as monotonous as a head count, maybe. Like IoT, that could be an example of that. Might be like wearable tech. Like we all have our Apple Watches, right? But what if there was an IoT capability that allowed you as the manager of a construction site or the manager of a factory or a warehouse or something like that to give a head count of your employees just by tapping into their wearable tech. You could see who's where at what time. You don't have to send somebody out to go manually count the heads or figure out where everybody is, or like if there's safety issues, right? Like there's a lot of examples there and a lot of really cool things that could happen in the future that would cut down on those, monotonous tasks, but also still have human oversight, of course. We don't want to be controlled by robots, but if they can help us, all the better, right?
If there could be some assistance, yes, I would agree. We're not just going to leave it up to the.
I am 100% not advocating for a robot takeover, but if they can help us out, if the wearable tech or like even things like I saw an article the other day about machine control, right? Basically, like the equivalent of like self-driving cars for construction.
Right.
Sounds a little scary, but if that maybe cuts down on like machine or fleet accidents, maybe it's worth it. So a lot of things to digest there for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think I like I like what you focused in on there, and as far as from a safety standpoint. So I think the safety is, again, not leaving everything up to the machines, as you say. There have been too many blockbuster movies about that very concept, but rather allowing them to assist us in what we are doing and making it happen in that way. And I like the application. We know the applications of IoT in our homes. That's great, especially with the pandemic. There's certainly a lot of people that have probably been rethinking their processes and had the time at home to kind of tinker with those possibilities, but taking it to a broad. I like how you take it to a more industry standard. Let's think of this in a broad sense and how we can really save on human hours, and that's good stuff. I like it. I think you'd be good for this show. All right. All right, super. So. Let's see. Tell me about what are you seeing right now? You mentioned another thing that you had mentioned that's on the horizon. What are you seeing right now that kind of indicates to you that COVID-19 changed a lot of things? How are you seeing that? How are you seeing that change in the price of materials?
Yeah. The cost of materials has been increasing for quite a while now, but I think that COVID-19 has really forced the issue. I really started paying attention to material prices and tariffs, sort of like I mentioned, coming from Canada back in 2016. And my clients up on the Canadian border were really feeling that cost. And And that hasn't gone away, right? That's been a near consistent for 5 years now. And that being said, our country has obviously gone through a bit of a roller coaster in terms of politics and presidential administrations coming in and out, and the tariffs that they've levied on other countries, and that's still affecting us 5 years later after these tariffs were put in place. And the housing market dovetails into this issue either nicely or not very nicely, depending on who you are. But the housing market has been hot for a few years now, but it obviously started to skyrocket because of COVID-19, which I think on its surface was surprising to a lot of people. But if you looked at the mitigating factors of the housing market, it just sort of created this perfect storm, right? The Fed lowered interest rates. People can get mortgages for 3% now. That's insane. And the fact that we're sort of coming into a K-shaped recovery, I think you see a lot of home owners who are looking to upgrade, who have a lot of cash in hand, who can pay over the asking price. And so because of that, I don't think the price of materials is going to go down. I think these prices are going to remain artificially high because they can. And as long as there's a demand, I don't think those prices are going to regulate themselves, which is a shame, because a lot of these, I keep saying artificial restrictions, but they're artificial restrictions. They're making the dream of owning a home even harder for a lot of Americans. And, I read an article that because of these tariffs, it costs an average of an extra $16,000 to build a new home. And that's not your large square foot gated mansions. Those are just your run-of-the-mill single family average homes here in America. So I think that we were sort of on this path for inflated material prices before the pandemic, and the pandemic's just making it worse. So I hate to be such a negative Nancy, but I think that's how it's going to be for a while.
No, it's good to have an understanding as to, what are the factors that are leading into this. And also, this is something that, the question was over the next 5 years. So maybe there's awareness is certainly key. So I appreciate, negative or not, I appreciate your candid insights.
Yeah. Thanks.
So summer's coming. It's getting a little bit warmer, even though I'm based in Pittsburgh, and I love my HVAC, and air handling. I love my air conditioning. So tell me, you mentioned this. This is more. I guess this is a little bit selfish to ask this question. What significant advances have you seen in HVAC and air handling, and how can I get my hands on them?
Right. I think there's a huge likelihood that HVAC companies have already started rethinking their products and their offerings to make sure that, now I'm not an expert on HVAC or air circulation, so bear with me on this, but I do think that there is going to be a huge disruption in how these materials are produced with COVID in mind, and with airborne illnesses and airborne pathogens in mind. I mean, COVID, we were just bombarded with COVID facts this last year, and we know that it spreads through the air. We know that it affects the respiratory system. So I think in lieu of the pandemic, the HVAC companies are really going to need to come out of the gate strong with systems, with air circulation systems that are going to be able to put comfort in the minds of the end user. So not only comfort from a physical standpoint, but also that peace of mind, knowing that not only is the air it's a nice temperature, but it's also, I have peace of mind that it's healthy, it's clean air. Exactly. Yeah. Not only is it, cost effective or whatever the case may be, top of mind, but I think the pandemic has really brought it home. Hey, what are the air filter requirements? Is this the best I can get? I'm nervous about the next airborne pathogen. How can I make sure that I'm doing the best to protect myself and my family?
Yeah, so that totally makes sense for like large convention areas. That makes a lot of sense for, large groups of people. Do you think, how do you think that's going to kind of, I guess, filter down into residential construction?
Yeah, that's a great question. My hope is that the pandemic will sort of bring a sense of, hey, we're all in this together. I hope the companies that do come up with this technology, this advanced technology that's going to help filter out airborne pathogens, allow those blueprints or allow those patents to come into, a general business place so everybody can make use of them, and hopefully folks can install those advanced systems at a lower price point. So it's not just the convention centers and, the Fortune 500 companies that can afford to place advanced air filtration systems in their businesses. Hopefully, we get to a place where everybody can breathe clean air, and hopefully we'll put COVID behind us. That'll be a big relief for everyone.
Absolutely, and not just in new construction, because it's easy to put in the new technology with new construction, but maybe some retrofitting as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so that this way we don't have to, create a whole new convention center, or I don't have to build a new house, but I can retrofit what I currently have. Do you see any? Are you seeing anything out there that's similar to that, or anything that is on the way?
I think there will be. I think that if anything, peril breeds innovation, right? And I think that regardless of how the pandemic wraps up, it's going to be top of mind for companies, for consumers, for everyone. And I think we're going to start to see some advanced systems. I think they're probably working on it right now, and I think we're going to see those sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely on the forefront, breathing that clean air, because so often it's forgotten, and it unfortunately takes something like a pandemic that really brings it to light. So very interesting stuff there. So let's talk about the rise of eco-friendly materials. We had a custom home builder by the name of Drew from Southern Home Builders on our show a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned this as well. He said, reducing waste, not only in, within your own home, but reducing waste on the, when it comes to contractors, when it comes to builders. So that, we're seeing a lot of that eco-friendly mentality really coming to the forefront. So let me ask you, how can material manufacturers cater to this rise of green eco-friendly mentalities?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that example up, because I think people want to do business with manufacturers who are cognizant of the environment and who care about the output of their materials and what that's doing to our environment and to our climate. And if that doesn't work, then I think businesses should be excited about the fact that eco-friendly materials will probably cost less in the long run, because it's going to reduce energy consumption and cost less to maintain, right? So, funny story, I actually read a study that showed that green material manufacturers experienced faster growth than their competitors who were not eco-friendly. So that's something to throw in, even if it's just about money. Hey, that's a great incentive, right, to start. So if I'm a manufacturer and I know that green materials, according to that study anyway, are going to save me money, they're going to save me time in the long run, then I'm definitely looking into things like solar capabilities. I'm looking into things like renewable energy options. I'm looking into like recycled materials. How can I incorporate, recycled materials that are going to do the job, but at a better cost to the environment? Things like bamboo are huge. A term that I've heard quite a bit floating around is rapid renewables. So things that can be used and then replaced and grown really quickly in a way that's good for the environment. And from a more global, high level perspective too, I think as older generations start to retire and newer generations start to come into the workforce, I think a lot of young talented people want to work with companies who are cognizant of the environment, who want to help the climate, who want to use green materials. So there's a lot of incentive there to not only do the right thing in terms of the environment, but also connect to, the younger workforce, the millennials, the Gen Z as well, who grew up with this idea of climate change and what we need to do to help solve it. So there's a lot of good reasons to be eco-friendly and to start sourcing environmentally friendly products.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you touched on that last part, that how workers want to, be a part of an organization that has this type of mentality. Would you say that consumers are also making that shift, that it's not just, oh, I want the quickest possible, solution or product in my hands immediately, but they look beyond that and kind of say, I support this, I purchased this product because I have, I believe in their purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am a huge fan of this company called Stasher. I don't know if you've heard of them, well, but they are a company that basically gets rid of the use of for plastic Ziploc baggies. And you can cook. It's like a plastic silicone, and you can use it as a sandwich bag. You can cook in it. You can steam things in it. You can use it in the freezer. And I bought a couple of these 2 years ago, and I haven't looked back. I haven't bought Ziploc bags since. And it's just it's those little things that people, in their teens and their 20s and their 30s are starting to really glom onto. We're starting to see a lot of, like fun little things too, like utensils, taking like your own utensils with you if you're going to Chipotle or something, and, cutting down on those single-use plastics. And it sort of used to be associated with more of like a hippie vibe, a bohemian vibe, and now it's sort of coming into the mainstream, which is great, because the more we can reduce, single-use plastics, and the better friend we are to the environment, the better, right?
I am familiar with the bags that you're talking about. My oldest son he's very much into this whole eco-friendly mentality and everything. And he actually asked for Christmas those particular bags. So for his lunches, he said, I want you to pack them in this, no more plastics, things like that. So you're hitting on all the right things here. You can see that it's the younger, he's 18, he's going off to college next year. So, but he has that mentality. I'd rather purchase a more expensive, he asked for his birthday, I'd rather purchase a more expensive jacket because it's eco-friendly. It's still very warm, but it's eco-friendly. So I think that you're right. It's coming into the mainstream.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, if the teens are wanting this stuff for Christmas and birthdays, it's definitely in vogue then, if the teens are into it, for sure.
Exactly. And to be honest, I mean, not to label myself as an old fogey, but he certainly taught me a couple of things as well. So that mentality, like I said, that mentality is definitely coming to the mainstream. So that's great. Great information. So, all right, let's talk software for a second here. Okay, a couple of acronyms going to throw out your way. So, but I think you're ready for them. There's a lot of resistance in the construction space in general towards adopting, like a CRM, like HubSpot, or ERPs, PRMs, just software in general, because I think there's that mentality of, we've always done it this way. Why would I want to, bring this technology in here? So, what impact have you seen for a B2B manufacturer using, for example, like HubSpot's Enterprise Suite? What have you seen the impact that has improved their marketing channel and even their indirect sales efforts?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you and I are both HubSpot nerds, so we could get real into the weeds with this, but I'll just keep it high level for now. But what I love about the Enterprise Suite, and even the professional suite, is that it makes it so easy for companies to execute a holistic marketing strategy and a holistic sales strategy, right? You can use the blog tool to create content that's going to drive folks to your site. You keep them engaged with your website with that UX that you can host on capture information from those interested people and nurture them with emails and other educational content that is created specifically for them. And you can approach sales too from an inbound perspective. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before the show, but for me, it's all, and you too, well, it's all about education and putting your company in a position to help the consumer, right? Like I have a HubSpot sticker on my desk that says, we will succeed because our customers will, right? And it's all about making sure that the folks that you are bringing into your company, you're educating them from the beginning to the end, and you keep that going. And, the other thing too is, just to speak to the point of inbound sales, I think specifically for our manufacturing clients, a lot of them are global too, and they get a ton of value from HubSpot when it comes to attribution and when it comes to things like closed loop reporting. one of the biggest things that I hear is, I can't track anything. I don't know my ROI on marketing. I don't know my ROI on this team or that team. And, if you use HubSpot and you set it up in the right way, I think that can be easily remedied. And segmentation is great. Being able to control different teams, especially if you're global, being able to control what's happening in North America, what's happening in Asia, what's happening in Europe, things like that. Just the whole system itself, all the pieces work so great together. And like I said, I'm a HubSpot nerd, so I'll plug HubSpot all day. But just being able to see everything from start to finish is a huge asset.
Well, yeah, you definitely described me very well. I'm also a HubSpot nerd. I live in HubSpot pretty much on a daily basis. So you're kind of preaching to the choir right here, but of course to our audience. Let me ask you this. How do you think, or what's the best way to get over that hurdle to really help, to help the adoption of HubSpot, for example, or some other software in a, more of a, I guess, an older manufacturing, instance or business?
Yeah. With the tool like HubSpot, it's fantastic because there's so much education provided around it. If you don't want to hire an agency or you don't want to hire a marketing partner, there's a lot that you can learn on your own with tools from the HubSpot Academy. They really break it down. Videos are great. They have an extensive community knowledge base forum where folks go in and ask questions. They've got that support to help you, but really just starting with your website and understanding who your consumer is, what they're looking for, what their pain points are. And if you have your company in a position to help solve your customers' problems, then the content will fill in itself, the sales process will fill in itself. But a tool like HubSpot really gives you all of that in one place and can allow you to track everything and understand where your consumers are coming from, how they're moving through your sales cycle, and what you need to do to capture their attention and keep them engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually heard, I'm going to ask you a question that is can be hotly debated or not, but I read somewhere that the current salespeople who are doing inbound sales, they're shifting away from you have to convince somebody to purchase a product, and they're moving more towards almost a customer service, that even before they're customers, they're considered a service rather than salespeople. Do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts?
I completely agree. I mean, pre-internet, the power was really with the salespeople. And now the situation is reversed, and really the power is with the consumer. And the consumer holds all the cards. They have all of the research available to them at the tip of their fingers. And it really becomes, hey, who's going to solve my problem with the least amount of friction? Who am I going to trust, right? And if you've got a backlog of educational content that helps people understand their problem and how to solve it, you're already putting your company in a great place in terms of trust and trustworthiness, and that's going to translate into a good relationship and hopefully a sale. So.
I love that. I love that whole concept of problem solving, because so many people, they go to the internet or they go to Google because I'm looking for this, or I want to solve this issue. It's just too much of a thorn in my side. So let's make it happen. So I think, especially even when it comes to just creating content, you mentioned how easy it is with HubSpot. Certainly a lot of people just say, well, where do I start? And, the answer is, what problems does your product, what does it solve? And speak to that.
Absolutely.
That's great. Taylor, it has been great having you on the show here. Where can our audience get in touch with you? Where do you like to hang out? Is it LinkedIn? How can we get in touch and maybe learn a little bit more about you and what your service provides?
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll be hanging out a lot at Camden Yards this summer, so hopefully you can catch me there. But if I'm not there, you can find me on LinkedIn. Taylor L. Rennick is my username, and you also can go to the Precision Marketing Group website. Lot of great content on there for manufacturers and content pieces, everything you could ever need. So definitely, you can find me on precisionmarketinggroup.com as well.
Perfect. Taylor, thank you so much for joining us today. And you've provided a lot of great insights for our audience, and we really appreciate it. So we'll be talking to you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Will.
All right. Thanks, Taylor. Bye now. All right. So that was Taylor, everyone. It was great having her on the show. And of course, if there's anything that you feel like you might have missed a little bit, well, guess what? We take this show and we convert it into a podcast. So check it out wherever you enjoy your podcasts. You can find it on all the platforms, and that'll be posted soon. Also, you can find us on Manobytes. This has been live, so you can find us on Manobytes YouTube page, or if you're on Facebook or Twitter. Basically, you can find Manobyte, you can find this show, and you can take a look at all the great insights that Taylor provided for us for today. So find us on all the socials there. And of course, you want to connect with me, you can find me at will.smith@manobyte.com, and you can get in touch that way. But until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. And whatever life is unboxing for you in the next week, in the next month, may it be great. Thanks for joining us today.